This is John for Global Women's Sports Radio. Today, I have the pleasure of being on the beat with Anna Young, golf coach, former golf pro. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for your time. I'm not an expert on golf, but I'm hoping to learn a little bit more by talking to you.
Well, I hope you can learn something. Usually you can learn at least one thing from everybody, whether it's a good or bad thing.
Well, I'm sure I'll learn something. If not, I'll at least have some fun for a bit.
Yes.
So let's jump right into it. When did you start golfing?
My parents put me in junior lessons when I was a kid, probably between the ages of like 8 and 10, but then I didn't really get into it probably till I was about 13. Um, I played my first tournament when I was 12 and I shot 131 and 129 from the forward tees. And at that time, a 125 was a really good score for me. So it was not my best, but it was definitely a good learning experience. And then I just kind of progressed from there. I played a couple tournaments here and there throughout the years. But my main focus was dance and volleyball. And then
Wow.
I just slowly started to enjoy golf more and more. And then when I was 15, that was when I decided that I wanted to really pursue it.
Now I watched a couple of interviews with you online, and I read
Mhm.
a little bit. I heard that your first LPGA tournament was actually in your home country of Canada.
Yeah,
So
and my
what
home
kind of experience
province.
was? I'm sorry, what kind of experience was that?
Honestly, it was amazing. It was one of my favorite weeks on tour or playing professionally. It was the only LPGA tour event I played, but it was definitely one of the best weeks. And not only was it my first one in Canada, but it was the very first one ever held in Saskatchewan, the first Canadian Open
Oh,
ever held in Saskatchewan.
so you had the
So
hometown crowd behind you,
yeah,
or the
it was
home
so
country crowd, I
cool.
should say.
It was awesome.
Now you fairly recently have segued into coaching golf.
Yes.
What brought that career path to you?
You know what? That's a really interesting question. And I feel like every professional answers it differently because everyone decides to move on from professional golf for many different reasons. My reason, it kind of worked out with the timing of COVID. COVID hit March 2020, and I had kind of decided like the end of 2019 that I was going to maybe figure out if I wanted to continue playing full time or not. And so one of my like choices before I knew, before COVID all happened, was I was going to play the Australian tour at the beginning of the year because it's a short season, but really good tournaments, really fun events. I'd heard amazing things about it, and I would definitely recommend it for any professional. Um, and I was going to see how I felt coming right off of a fresh off season after finishing Q school, making it to second stage, and earning status on this Metro Tour. Um, and my goal for those events was to practice like I was playing full time and to reflect on how happy I was and, my fire, like my determination for wanting to play well. And it was definitely clear to me that I wasn't there 100% in my determination. And I always said that if I wasn't having, a ton of fun anymore, that would be the time to start looking into new things. And so throughout 2020, my plan coming back from Australia was to play part time and then coach part time. And then COVID happened, and then I could only coach part time. And so I could only coach. So I dove right into it, and then I loved it. And I was like, "Yep, this is what I want to do."
So I always want to know when athletes transition. I actually just talked to a football player who transitioned from playing football into selling real estate. What
Mhm.
is it like? What is the transition like? You're out of the limelight, you're out of the public eye, so to speak, and you're
Mhm.
leading quote unquote a more normal life. What has the transition been like for you?
I put a lot of thought about into my retirement from professional golf before I had even started professional golf.
Oh, wow.
Um, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I knew that like no matter what, whether I chose to quit professional golf or whether I was taken out of it by an injury, I wanted to be prepared. And I have a degree in psychology. And I remember one of the classes hit me, it really resonated with me because they were talking about how your job or your sport or something that you do becomes a part of you. And if that is the only thing that you also use to define yourself, then any change going forward that may or may not include that thing it makes that transition extremely difficult. And the University of Florida, where I went, they had a class specifically for athletes to kind of prepare people for transitioning out of like college athletics into like the real jobs. And, I kind of used that as like an early preparation for whenever I decided or whenever I was, uncontrollably taken out of professional golf. And so I made a really big effort to have hobbies and make sure that I looked at myself as a whole person and not just as a golfer, because I know there are so many people who quit golf and then they come back a year later because either they're not ready to let go of their identity, or they decided that the more normal traditional life wasn't for them. But I know that the ones that do transition, that don't already have that mindset going into the real, like the more normal world, have a really difficult time making that transition, because your mentality is everything. So if you feel like you lose yourself when you lose your sport, then depression is a huge obstacle that a lot of athletes face when they come out of their professional sports. So I actually felt really prepared, and I put a lot of thought into deciding whether I was going to be finished or not. And as terrible as the whole, all of COVID was, it really gave me a chance to dive into coaching and really see what it's like to do it every day. And, it worked for me and I loved it. But I know that I wouldn't have made as easy of a transition. And don't get me wrong, there's still things I struggle with, like not traveling all the time. Oh my gosh, I was like, I haven't been on a plane in like a year and a half. It's so weird. But overall, I made a pretty smooth transition, and I'm really proud of how I did that because of the emphasis on my mental, my identity as a person and not as a golfer.
So what about like the thrill of the competition, the rush of going out there? What has replaced that in your life?
Oh my gosh, when my students hit a good shot and their face just lights up, it's the best thing in the world. The absolute best. Like, and as an example, like one of my reasonings or my thoughts when I was, considering quitting professionally or like full-time competitive golf was, I've always wanted to help people. And I knew at some point in my life, I would want to do that more. And one of my inspirations as a professional golfer was to be, a role model for young kids going for their dreams. Like, I was from Saskatchewan, where you have like a 4-month golf season, 5 if we're lucky. And like a lot of that isn't even good weather. So if I can make it to the LPGA, that is not going to stop anybody from, making the choices to go for their dreams, So
And
that was kind of a big one for me.
now, this is going to be kind of a goofy question, but as a coach, what if you get one of your students, pupils, who's just really horrible, and that like there's, it's just not going to happen? What do you do with that person?
Well, I always ask people, my first question is, why do you want to get better? Because if you want to get better to, play better golf, or if you're just wanting to hit a few better shots, with your buddies on the course, like that makes a difference. So even if someone is really, really terrible, I always know why they're doing it. So I have a good idea going forward of how to approach the technique that we're working on specifically. So, if someone was really competitive and they really wanted to be better and they were just not getting it, then it's my job to find a new way to explain it to them. Because as a coach, of course, I have my own style of teaching, but it's not about me. It's about the student. So if they're not getting something, I have to explain it in a different way for them to understand. And then that's my job. It's not on them. Of course, some people have more or less athletic ability, but I'm still the coach. It's my job to make them better. And I think because I am so competitive and because I am really meticulous in my own golf game, I'm able to figure out small differences in people's thought processes about a certain swing thought or, what they're trying to do. So that's kind of how I go about it. It's, it is definitely student focused, but it's more about how I explain something to them and how I need to change it to help them understand better.
And do you coach all levels, all ages, or do you have like a certain segment that you focus on?
I really do coach everyone, especially since I'm new to coaching. So I kind of wanted to really expand my knowledge and be able to teach everybody and get them as much experience as I can before I kind of decide which groups I would like to focus on. So, I've coached kids from ages, 3 to, adults to ages like 76. So I've really coached everybody, and whether they've been competitive golf or not competitive golfers, it's just really fun because I get to focus on different things with different people. And it's really given, I love golf, but I definitely love the competitive side more. So I feel like being able to coach so many different people has given me a new love and appreciation for the game, because there's so many reasons why golf is awesome, not just for the reasons that I played.
And for coaching men, have men ever bristled, I guess, at the concept of a woman coaching them?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the men who come see me for lessons already, they know my background. So I think that does help. But if I was just any other coach and I didn't have professional playing experience, they would probably be less likely to take lessons from me. And, that's pure speculation. Like, I don't really know, but if I was to guess, if I didn't have as much playing experience behind me, I would probably not have as many men coming to me for lessons. But the majority of people that do see me for lessons are definitely women and children. But I'm okay with that. Like, I'll teach anybody, but definitely my goal, especially in Saskatchewan, is to build a stronger golf community within like juniors and women, because they really are the future of the game. And the more that society changes and the more equal society becomes, the golf course is going to be more, it needs to be geared more towards families rather than just the men, because golf was made by men for men, and now the world is not the same. Women want to go out to the golf course too, but a lot of them are really uncomfortable because they feel that this game was built for the male perspective. And part of my job, especially when I give women's clinics, is I tell them that they deserve to be there, because as simple as it sounds, like, women need to hear that, because it's not always a welcoming environment, especially when, they go to the course maybe 4 times in the summer and they see one other lady golfer. That's not encouraging. So that's kind of, I know I kind of went on a bit of a rant there, but that's kind of my thought process on who I teach and how I teach.
Do you think women's golf is expanding? Is it growing right now?
For sure. Absolutely. I don't know all the statistics on it. I've read quite a bit about it over COVID areas, over COVID times, but I know that the statistics have definitely shown a huge rise in interest in women's golf. Even prior to COVID, there was a lot more women and junior girls getting more interested in it. But I think it's because of the efforts of all of the women golfers who have come before me, who've really started to pave that way. And especially now, like the Epson Tour, as an example, we have the tour that I played before was the Symmetric Tour. It's now called the Epson Tour. They have a new change in sponsorship. Epson has lowered entry fees. They have risen the purses, and it's huge. Even the smallest thing of lowering entry fees is so helpful. And being able to have the same opportunity as a professional woman golfer as a man, it's not there yet, but it's definitely getting there. And when younger girls, juniors, and women see that you can be a super awesome athletic golfer and be on TV, and it's the same ideation as, kids watching Tiger growing up. It's like, it would be so cool to have, one of the LPGA players who, like Annika Sorenstam as an example, for, a junior to grow up watching Annika Sorenstam and then getting to play with her on the LPGA. It's like Rory McIlroy and Tiger, but everybody knows that story. Nobody knows the stories on the LPGA because they've only just been starting to be heard about.
Now, when you were a professional golfer, you're a coach now.
Mhm.
Has any of that changed your mindset or I guess your enjoyment level? Like when you just go out and play golf with your friends, like just to have fun. Does your background affect that at all?
Totally. Honestly, now that I'm now that I'm not competing for my livelihood and I'm not, putting for money and every shot isn't on the line, I have a lot less motivation. But it's also not my goal anymore. So I think the last like 2 years, like since I've started coaching, I have not played nearly as much as I thought I would. But I'm definitely okay with that right now. Like I know I'll get back more into playing for more of my own enjoyment, but because I spent so much time on my own game and on my own swing, I feel like I got, not burnt out to the point that I hated golf, but to the point that I knew that it wasn't as fun for me to focus on me because I was like, okay, well, I'll hit a shot down the fairway. Yeah, like that's fine. It doesn't do anything for me. It's like, cool, I'm in the middle of fairway. That's like, I don't know, almost every other day, every other fairway. So when my students hit those shots, it's like way more exciting. And I definitely get a little bit now that I've been out of the professional golf world for a while in regards to competing, I definitely have a bit more of a bug to get out there. Um, but it's a different motivation than it was before. So I wouldn't say it's comparable, but it's definitely still fun, which I'm grateful for because, spent so much of my life working on this game. It would be really sad if I didn't love it anymore.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of loving it, what would be like your bucket list of a couple of courses, 2 or 3 courses that you would love to play on?
Oh man, there's so many, honestly. Well, number one would have to be Augusta because of the history. And I really hope that I can't remember what the LPGA tournament is that would be the equivalent now. So it was the ANA at Mission Hills, but now it's changed to move to Texas. I can't remember what the name is, but I sure hope that like in years to come, that can have a very similar feel as Augusta to the general public. Stream Song in Florida is one on my bucket list because I live down there. So I lived in Orlando for about 6 years, and I always heard such great things about that golf course from friends who were able to play it. And I'm just trying to think of another international one that I've really wanted to play. Honestly, I'm kind of one of those people who I'm very in the moment. So when it comes to like things I want to do, I have lists, but I never look at those lists unless they're actually going to become a reality. So I'm going to stick with Augusta and Stream Song as like my go-to courses right now on my bucket list because I have a million on that list. But I guess, Pinehurst would probably be one of them as well. Even though now that I'm not playing anymore, they play the Q series for the LPGA there. So I missed it by like 1 year.
Oh, a silly question. Mini golf. Are you just like an absolute killer at mini golf?
That's a loaded question. I am a great left-handed putter when it comes to mini golf, but when it comes to my dominant hand, having a putter that is not my putter throws me off a little bit. So the short putts are good, but my distance is a little off.
So you don't bring your own putter to those places?
No, honest, I've thought about it, but I feel like that's a little bit too up there for me.
Okay. So when you're not golfing, when you're not teaching, when you're not thinking about golf, what do you do to get away for golf?
Right now, so I'll answer that in two ways because I think it's important for whoever is listening as a professional golfer or as an amateur golfer to hear both sides. So as a professional golfer, when I was on tour, I would bring my guitar everywhere and I would play that every once in a while, but not too much because if I played too much, then I would start having wrist issues. So I would set a timer so I didn't play too much. And then I would like to walk around in bookstores. I really love to cook, so I would always cook in my spare time if I was home, or I would walk around bookstores and look at new recipes, things like that. And now that I'm living in one spot and all of my things are here, and I don't have to worry about a wrist injury now that I'm not on tour anymore. I play guitar quite often now, and I cook a lot. I love to bake. I like to go on really long walks with my dog and my fiance. And I also work in the winter as a continued carry. So even though that's still, technically work, I really enjoy having a balance of my golf work and another type of work. And it's really cool because in the summer when I do pick up shifts as a continued carried, I can work an 8-hour shift and then be completely fresh minded for, 2 or 3 hours of lessons if I choose to do that because it's something different and it's really fun. I love both jobs. And I think if I did just one or just the other, I would not get as much out of them as I do for both of them. So even though that's a job, I still kind of call it a hobby because I really do love doing it.
Sure. No, it makes total sense. Before I
Yeah.
let you go, where can people find out more information about you and your services, your coaching lessons?
So you can find me on Facebook at Anna Young Golf. Player Golf is a very Saskatchewan brand, and I wear them all the time. They're definitely my signature hat, but they have hoodies, they have golf wear, they have hats, they have head covers, and honestly, the logo is just like super cool. This isn't their general logo. I wonder, actually, let's see, is it on here? No, their general logo isn't on here, but it's a circle with a little golfer in it. And if you look at any of my interviews, I'm usually wearing a hat like that. So it's not too hard to find.
Well, listen, I really, really appreciate your time. I did learn several things and I did have fun along the way. So I encourage everyone to check you out online. Check if you're looking for golf lessons, you'd be the perfect one. If I was looking for golf lessons, I certainly would hit you up for that. But I really appreciate your time and I wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited that you guys are putting a lot of effort into growing the women's side of sports media. So it's really appreciated. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for everything you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.